She thought cleaning out her grandpa's abandoned motel would take a weekend. Then 3,000 bikers surrounded the place, knelt before her, and called her their new leader. Turns out, her grandfather wasn't just running a motel, he was running the largest underground intelligence network in the Southwest. And she just inherited a war. The rusty sign reading Desert Rose Motel hung by a single chain, creaking in the hot wind like a warning. Holly pressed her face against the car window, watching the sun-bleached building grow larger as her mom's sedan bumped along the cracked desert road. "This was Grandpa's?" Holly asked, her voice small in the air-conditioned silence. Her mom's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "For 40 years. He never wanted us to visit, remember? Always said the desert wasn't safe for kids." Holly did remember. She'd only met Grandpa twice, both times he'd driven 15 hours to their house in Oregon, stayed 3 days, and left before dawn. He smelled like leather and motor oil, told strange stories about stars and secrets, and always gave her puzzles to solve. The last one, a wooden box with 17 interlocking pieces, had taken her 3 months to crack. Now he was gone. Heart attack, they said. Alone in this forgotten place. The car stopped in a cloud of dust. Holly stepped out into heat that felt solid, like walking into a wall. The motel stretched before them, 12 rooms in an L shape, walls the color of old bones, windows dark as closed eyes. Behind it, the desert ran forever, interrupted only by distant mountains that shimmered like mirages. 2 days, her mom said, grabbing a duffel bag from the trunk. "We clean out what we can, meet with the lawyer, and go home. That's it." But Holly wasn't listening. She was staring at the ground. The parking lot was covered in tire marks. Not old, faded ones, fresh tracks, hundreds of them, circling the motel in patterns that reminded her of something. Sacred geometry, maybe. Or military formations. "Mom, look at. Inside, Holly. Before we melt." The lobby door protested with a shriek of rusted hinges. Inside was cooler, but barely. Dust hung in the air like snow that forgot how to fall. The front desk was ancient wood, scarred and water-stained. Behind it, a pegboard held 12 keys, each with a faded room tag. Holly's shoes left prints in the dust as she moved deeper into the space. Everything felt frozen in time, a 1987 calendar on the wall, a rotary phone on the desk, a radio that looked like it belonged in a museum. Then she saw it. On the floor behind the desk, half hidden under a faded newspaper, sat a metal box. It was roughly the size of a shoebox, made of brushed steel, with a combination lock on the front. Someone had used a label maker to attach a strip of white tape across the top. For the next keeper. Holly's heart kicked in her chest. She knew that label maker, she'd seen it in photos of Grandpa's workshop. This wasn't random. This was meant for someone. Maybe for her. She knelt and pulled the box free, newspaper fluttering away. The metal was surprisingly warm, like it had been sitting in sunlight, though the lobby was shaded. The combination lock had 4 dials, each numbered 0 through 9. "Holly, don't touch," her mom started, then stopped. "What is that?" "It has my name on it," Holly lied, but only a little. Keeper felt personal. Sort of. She turned the dials experimentally. They moved smoothly, well-oiled despite the building's decay. There had to be 10,000 possible combinations. But Grandpa loved patterns. He'd always said, "Numbers are stories, Holly. You just have to know the language." Her birthday? Too obvious. The motel's address? She didn't know it. Wait. The calendar on the wall showed July 1987. July was the 7th month. Grandpa had circled the 17th in red ink. And above it, he'd written 2 numbers, 44. July 17th 44. But that was only 6 digits, and she needed 4. Unless. Holly spun the dials, 7-1-7-4. Nothing. She tried, 1-7-4-4. The lock clicked. The mechanism released with a sound like an exhaled breath. "Holly, wait," her mom said. But Holly was already lifting the lid. Inside was a leather journal, its cover cracked with age. Beneath it, a folded map marked with symbols she didn't recognize. And beneath that, something that made her stomach drop, a faded photograph of her grandfather, much younger, standing in front of this very motel. Behind him stood at least 50 bikers, leather vests gleaming in desert sun. And every single one of them wore the same patch on their backs, an iron-gray dandelion against a black circle. "What the hell?" her mom whispered, leaning over Holly's shoulder. Holly reached for the journal, but before her fingers touched the leather, the sound reached them. Distant at first. A rumble like thunder, but rhythmic. Mechanical. Her mom's head snapped up. "Is that?" The rumble grew louder. Deeper. Not one engine, but dozens. Then hundreds. Holly ran to the lobby window, wiping dust from the glass with her palm. The desert horizon had changed. What had been empty sand and scrub brush now rippled with movement, a dark wave approaching fast, spreading across the landscape like spilled ink. Motorcycles. Not a dozen. Not 50. Hundreds. They came from every direction, engines roaring in perfect synchronization, riders in leather and denim, sunlight flashing off chrome and steel. They didn't follow the road. They cut straight across the desert, converging on the motel from north, south, east, and west simultaneously. "We need to leave," her mom said, voice tight. "Right now." But it was already too late. The first wave of motorcycles swept into the parking lot in formation, 3 rows deep, engines cutting to idle in perfect unison. Then the next wave. Then another. They filled the lot, then the desert beyond, spreading out in concentric circles around the building. Holly counted 50 bikes. Then 100. Then she stopped counting. Her mom grabbed her arm. "The back door. Now." They ran through the lobby, past the dust-covered desk, toward the rear exit. Holly still clutched the metal box to her chest, journal and map sliding inside. Her mom's hand was shaking on the doorknob. The door opened. A man stood there. He was enormous, 6.5 feet of muscle and leather, with a gray beard that reached his chest and eyes like blue ice chips. His vest bore the same iron dandelion patch, and beneath it, words stitched in silver thread, "First Sentinel." Behind him, the desert was completely surrounded by bikes. By bikers. By an army that had materialized from nowhere. The man looked at Holly. At the box in her hands. At the journal visible inside it. Then he did something that made no sense at all. He dropped to one knee. "Heir of the iron dandelion," he said, voice deep as rolling thunder. "We've been waiting for you." From the parking lot, from the desert, from every direction, came the sound of hundreds of kickstands deploying in perfect unison. Then silence, complete and absolute, broken only by the desert wind. Holly's mom pulled her back, stepping between her daughter and the kneeling giant. But the man's eyes never left Holly's face. "Your grandfather sent word before he died," he said quietly. "He said when the box was opened, the legacy would wake. And when the legacy woke," he gestured to the desert, to the impossible gathering of riders. "We come home." Holly's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "How many of you are there?" The man's weathered face cracked into something that might have been a smile. 3,000, little keeper. And every single one of us just swore our lives to protect yours." The metal box suddenly felt very heavy in Holly's hands. And somewhere in the distance, so faint she almost missed it, Holly heard another sound beneath the idling engines. Sirens. Or maybe something worse. The sun balanced on the horizon like a copper coin, painting the desert orange and red. Holly stood frozen in the motel doorway, her mom's protective arm around her shoulders, staring at an ocean of leather and chrome that shouldn't exist. The giant biker rose from his knee with surprising grace. Up close, Holly could see the scars on his knuckles, the weathered lines around his eyes, the way his hand rested naturally on something heavy clipped to his belt. "My name is Bishop," he said, softer now. "I served under your grandfather for 23 years. We all did." He swept his arm toward the gathering. Mechanics, teachers, nurses, truckers, lawyers, people from every walk of life. Your grandfather built something beautiful. Something necessary. Built what? Holly's mom demanded. Who are you people? But Holly was already piecing it together, the way she solved her grandfather's puzzles. The tire marks in geometric patterns. The photograph of bikers from decades ago. The label, for the next keeper. An intelligence network, she whispered. Bishop's ice blue eyes widened slightly. Your grandfather said you were sharp. He undersold it. More bikers approached from the formation, 5 of them, older than Bishop, their vests decorated with patches Holly couldn't decipher. Ranks, maybe. Or territories. One was a woman with silver hair in a long braid, face like carved mahogany. Another was Asian, missing his left hand, an elaborate mechanical prosthetic in its place. Council members, Bishop explained. We need to talk. But not out here. Not exposed. Exposed to what? Holly's mom's voice cracked. What did my father-in-law get my daughter into? The woman with the silver braid stepped forward. Her patch read, Long road, ma'am, your father-in-law spent 40 years protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. He tracked cartel movements, warned communities about threats, fed information to the few clean law enforcement agencies left in the Southwest. He saved thousands of lives. Then why the secrecy? Holly asked. Why shut everything down? The council members exchanged glances. Bishop's jaw tightened. Because 10 years ago, he said slowly, your grandfather found something he wasn't supposed to find. Evidence that a cartel had infiltrated every level of law enforcement, politics, even some biker clubs. They were building an empire. And they learned that someone was tracking them. The mechanical sound Holly had heard, not quite sirens, grew louder from the east. Bishop's head snapped up. His hand went to a radio on his belt. Perimeter report. Now. A voice crackled back, 3 black SUVs approaching fast from Highway 12. No plates. Tinted windows. ETA 4 minutes. The desert exploded into motion. Bikers who'd been standing casually beside their rides suddenly moved with military precision. Engines roared to life. The formations shifted, the outer rings turned outward, creating a defensive wall. The inner circles tightened around the motel. Inside, Bishop ordered. Council room. Now. He didn't wait for agreement. His massive hand closed around Holly's shoulder, not roughly, but firmly, and he guided her back through the rear door. Her mom followed, voice rising in protest that no one acknowledged. They moved through a kitchen that smelled of dust and ancient grease, then to what looked like a storage closet. Bishop pressed something behind a shelf, and the back wall shifted, revealing stairs leading down. You're joking, Holly's mom breathed. Your father-in-law never joked about safety, Longroad said, already descending. The basement was nothing like the derelict motel above. LED lights flickered to life, revealing a space that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Computer equipment, old but functional, lined one wall. Maps covered another, marked with pins and string connecting locations. Radio equipment, backup generators, even bunks in the corner. And in the center, a conference table with 7 chairs. Bishop locked the metal door at the top of the stairs. The sound of engines above became muffled, distant. Holly set the metal box on the table. Her hands were shaking. 10 years ago, Bishop continued, settling into a chair that creaked under his weight, your grandfather shut down the Iron Dandelion network. Cut all contact. Went completely dark. We thought he'd abandoned us. Some of us were angry. Others understood, he'd found something too dangerous to fight. The man with the prosthetic hand spoke for the first time, his voice carrying an accent Holly couldn't place. He sent one message before going silent. He said, I have a granddaughter. If they learn she exists, they'll use her to destroy everything. The network dies so she can live. Holly's chest felt tight. He protected me by disappearing? By sacrificing everything he built, Longroad said gently. The hardest thing a leader can do. Above them, the sound of engines stopped. New sounds replaced them, car doors slamming, voices shouting, the distinct mechanical click of weapons being readied. Bishop grabbed the radio. Status. SUVs stopped at perimeter. 6 men, unmarked tactical gear, assault rifles. They're asking for Holly Brennan by name. The basement went silent. Holly's mom made a small, broken sound. Bishop's voice was ice. How do they already know her name? The man with the prosthetic hand pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen. His face drained of color. The box, he said. The moment it opened, it sent a signal. Not to us, he looked at Holly, expression stricken. To them. Holly stared at the innocent-looking metal container. Grandpa's box. Was a trap? No, Bishop said firmly. A test. To see if anyone was still watching. To see if the threat was still real, his hand curled into a fist. And now we know. Above them, a voice echoed across the desert through a megaphone. Holly Brennan. We know you're inside. We know what you have. Send out the girl and the box, and everyone else walks away. Holly looked at Bishop. What do we do? The giant biker smiled, a wolf's smile, all teeth and no warmth. We remind them why the Iron Dandelion was never defeated in 40 years. He pressed a button on the radio. All units. Protocol Iron Thorn. They want a fight? 3,000 engines roared to life as one. Let's give them a war. The megaphone voice above ground repeated its demand, but Bishop ignored it. He moved to the far wall where a dusty tarp covered something large and rectangular. With one yank, he revealed an old television monitor and a VCR that looked ancient even by the Motel standards. Before we fight, Bishop said, his voice heavy, you need to understand what you inherited. What your grandfather died protecting. He ejected a tape already loaded in the machine and held it up to the light. Written in faded marker on the label, for Holly, watch when the box opens. Holly's breath caught. Her mom moved closer, hand finding Holly's shoulder. Bishop slid the tape in. The screen flickered to life with static, then resolved into an image that made Holly's heart squeeze. Her grandfather sat in this very room, in this very chair, looking older than she remembered. Tired. The camera angle was fixed, he'd set it up himself. The timestamp in the corner read, March 15, 2015. 10 years and 3 months ago. Holly, his recorded voice said, and even through the old speakers, she could hear the warmth in it. If you're watching this, I'm gone. And you found the box, which means you're clever enough to be dangerous. Just like your old grandpa. He smiled, but it faded quickly. I need to tell you a story. About why I built the Iron Dandelion network, and why I destroyed it to save you. The image cut to a map of the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Texas and California. Red pins dotted dozens of locations. 40 years ago, I was just a biker who saw too much, Grandpa continued. Border crossings that law enforcement ignored. Truck shipments that moved through towns without inspection. People disappearing. At first, I thought it was normal cartel business, terrible, but contained. Then I started connecting the dots. New footage appeared, newspaper clippings, photographs of politicians, police chiefs, judges. Faces Holly didn't recognize. The cartel wasn't just operating in the Southwest. They were becoming the Southwest. Buying officials, planting their people in positions of power, creating a shadow government. And anyone who noticed ended up dead or discredited. Grandpa's face returned to the screen, eyes hard. So I built a network. Bikers move everywhere, see everything, and nobody pays attention to us. We're just troublemakers, right? We started tracking shipments, documenting payments, recording conversations. For 30 years, we fed information to the few clean federal agents left. We saved lives, Holly. We stopped bad things. His expression darkened. Then, 10 years ago, I found the architect's list. The screen went black for a moment, then showed a document, pages and pages of names, dates, amounts. The header read, Operational Structure, Eyes Only. One of our riders intercepted a courier carrying this. It's the cartel's entire operation, every bribed official, every smuggling route, every planned expansion. But that's not the worst part. Grandpa leaned closer to the camera, and Holly saw something she'd never seen in him before, fear. The list contained a section called, Threats to Neutralize, 12 names. Judges who wouldn't play ball. FBI agents who got too close. Journalists who asked wrong questions. And at the bottom. The document zoomed in. Holly's blood went cold. Her grandfather's name. Her grandmother's name, who died when Holly's mom was young. And a line that read, Known descendants, 1 daughter, compromised, 1 granddaughter, age 2, potential future leverage. They knew about you, Grandpa whispered. You were 2 years old, Holly. They were already planning to use you against me someday. So I made a choice. The image cut back to him, and now Holly could see tears on his weathered cheeks. I shut everything down. Erased the network's digital footprint, burned communication protocols, sent everyone home. I told the council the Iron Dandelion was finished. Some understood. Most hated me for it. But I didn't care. Because keeping you safe meant more than any mission. He wiped his eyes roughly. I've spent 10 years living quiet, watching you from a distance, making sure they forgot about us. And it worked, you grew up normal and safe and brilliant. But I knew someday they'd come back. Cartels don't forget. They just wait. Grandpa reached toward the camera, and Holly realized he was adjusting something, positioning it to record the wall behind him. The wall covered in maps and photographs. So I built a trap. The box sends a signal when opened, but only if specific conditions are met. If I'm dead. If you're over 12. If the motel's been empty for at least a year. That means you're old enough to understand, and I'm not around to protect you anymore. His voice hardened into something Holly had never heard from him, pure steel. If the cartel responds to that signal, it means they're still watching. Still dangerous. Still hunting. And that means the Iron Dandelion needs to rise again, not to protect me, but to protect you. The camera angle shifted back to his face. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I never wanted this life for you. But you inherited more than a motel. You inherited a war. And the people upstairs? He gestured vaguely toward the ceiling. They'll follow you to hell and back, because that's what we do for family. And your family to every single one of them. He stood, preparing to turn off the camera, then paused. Oh, and Holly? The box has a false bottom. The real treasure isn't the journal. The screen went black. Holly stared at the dead monitor, her mind racing. Behind her, Bishop moved quietly, giving her space to process. Above ground, the megaphone voice shouted again, 2 minutes. Then we come in. Holly turned to the metal box, lifted out the journal and map, and felt along the interior. Her fingers found a slight indent. She pressed. The bottom panel popped up, revealing a USB drive wrapped in waterproof plastic. Taped to it was a note in her grandfather's handwriting, every secret they have. Every name. Every crime. Use it wisely. Holly looked up at Bishop, at the council members, at her terrified mother. He didn't just protect me, she said slowly. He armed me. Bishop's wolf smile returned. Your grandfather was the smartest man I ever knew. Holly picked up the USB drive, feeling its weight. Outside, engines still rumbled. Guns still waited. Dangerous men still demanded her surrender. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She was angry. How do we get out of here? She asked. Long Road moved to the eastern wall and pressed a hidden switch. A section of concrete swung inward, revealing a tunnel disappearing into darkness. Your grandfather thought of everything, she said. The megaphone above, time's up. Then the first gunshot shattered the desert silence. The gunshot echoed through the basement like a thunderclap. Holly flinched, but Bishop was already moving, radio to his mouth, voice calm despite the chaos erupting above them. All units, weapons free. Defensive positions only. Do not pursue. I repeat, do not pursue. We protect, we don't provoke. Through the ceiling came the sound of shattering glass, splintering wood, and then, impossibly, laughter. Deep, rumbling biker laughter mixed with the sharp cracks of gunfire. They're shooting up an empty motel, the man with the prosthetic hand said, checking his tablet. Tactical team thinks we're hiding in the rooms. They don't know about the basement. Holly's mom grabbed her arm. We need to leave. Now. Agreed, Bishop said. He gestured to Long Road, who disappeared into the tunnel with a flashlight. But carefully. These tunnels haven't been used in 10 years. Could be cave-ins, could be worse. More gunfire above. Holly heard the distinct sound of motorcycle engines repositioning. Bishop's people were moving, creating confusion, making the attackers think there were threats everywhere. How long can they hold? Holly asked, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. Long as they need to, Bishop said. Your grandfather trained us for this exact scenario. They've got smoke grenades, flashbangs, tire spikes deployed across every exit route. Those SUVs aren't leaving without our permission. A new voice crackled over Bishop's radio, younger, urgent. Bishop, we've got a problem. The tactical team just received reinforcements. 2 more vehicles approaching from the west. Helicopter inbound from the south. ETA 3 minutes. Bishop's jaw tightened. They're not here to arrest us. They're here to erase us. The council members exchanged dark looks. Holly felt her mom's grip on her arm tighten painfully. The tunnel, Bishop ordered. Everyone moves. Now. Long Road emerged from the darkness, flashlight beam cutting through the basement. First 100 yards are clear. After that, I don't know. But it beats staying here. Holly shoved the journal, map, and USB drive back into the metal box and clutched it to her chest. The prosthetic-handed man, his vest red, Cypher, was already dismantling the VCR, pocketing the tape of her grandfather's message. Leave nothing they can use, Bishop commanded. Cypher pulled a small device from his vest and placed it on the conference table. A red light blinked to life. Thermite charge. 30-second delay. It'll slag everything electronic. 30 seconds? Holly's mom's voice rose. That's not enough time to. It's plenty, Bishop said, already guiding Holly toward the tunnel entrance. Trust me. They filed into the darkness, Long rode first with the flashlight, then Holly and her mom, then the other council members, with Bishop bringing up the rear. The tunnel was narrow, carved from desert stone, support beams every 10 feet that looked ancient and fragile. Behind them, Bishop pressed something on his radio. "All units, fall back to secondary positions. Omega Protocol is active. Repeat, Omega Protocol." The response came as a unified roar of engines. Through the tunnel walls, Holly felt the vibration of 3,000 motorcycles moving simultaneously. "What's Omega Protocol?" she asked, stumbling over loose rocks. "Controlled chaos," Bishop replied. "We scatter in every direction, reconvene at predetermined locations. They can't follow 3,000 bikes across open desert. They'll have to choose, and whatever they choose, they lose us." The tunnel sloped downward, getting colder. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Holly's mom kept one hand on her daughter's shoulder, the other against the tunnel wall for balance. Then, from behind them, a muffled whump shook dust from the ceiling. "Thermite's gone," Cypher said calmly. "Basement's a dead end now." They walked in silence for what felt like hours but was probably only 15 minutes. Holly's legs ached. The metal box grew heavier. Then Long Road stopped abruptly, flashlight beam finding something that made her curse. The tunnel ahead had partially collapsed. Rocks and debris blocked 3/4 of the passage, leaving only a narrow gap at the top, maybe 2 feet wide. "Can we move it?" Bishop asked, already assessing the pile. "Not without risking the whole thing coming down," Long Road said. She shined her light through the gap. "But the tunnel continues on the other side. 30 feet, maybe less, then I see daylight." Bishop looked at Holly, then at the gap. "You first. You're smallest. Squeeze through, check if it's stable on the other side." Holly's heart hammered. The gap looked impossibly small, and beyond it was just darkness and more unknown tunnel. But behind them was worse. "Okay," she whispered. Bishop lifted her up. The rocks were rough against her hands, sharp against her stomach as she wiggled into the gap. The metal box scraped against stone. For a horrible moment she thought it wouldn't fit, but she angled it and pushed harder. Halfway through, she heard new sounds from behind, distant at first, then growing louder. Voices in the tunnel. Flashlight beams cutting through the darkness far behind Bishop's group. "They found the tunnel entrance," Cypher said flatly. "How?" Long Road hissed. "We sealed it." "Doesn't matter now," Bishop growled. "Holly, move faster." Holly pulled herself through, rocks scraping her arms, her chest. The metal box caught on something and she had to wiggle it free, precious seconds ticking away. Then she was through, tumbling onto the other side, landing hard on packed earth. She scrambled up, shining her phone's flashlight back at the gap. "It's clear. Come on." Her mom came next, squeezing through with difficulty, breathing hard. Then the other council members, one by one, grunting and cursing but making it through. Bishop was last. His huge frame barely fit, he had to exhale completely, turn sideways, use his arms to drag himself through inch by inch. Behind him, flashlight beams grew brighter. Voices shouted, not in English, Holly realized. Spanish mixed with something else. "Bishop, they're right behind you," Cypher called. The big man was stuck, shoulders wedged in the gap, face red with effort. Then Holly heard the sound that made her blood freeze. The mechanical click of a gun being cocked. "Nobody move," a voice said from the darkness behind Bishop. "Or the big man dies first." A flashlight beam stabbed through the tunnel, illuminating Bishop's trapped form. Behind it, Holly could just make out tactical gear, assault rifles, faces hidden behind masks. 6 of them. Maybe more. Bishop's ice-blue eyes found Holly through the gap. His expression was calm, eerily calm. Run, he said quietly. Bishop, no, Longroad started. Run, he roared. And then he did something Holly didn't expect. He grabbed the support beam next to the collapsed section and pulled. The tunnel groaned. Rocks shifted. The tactical team shouted in alarm. Go! Bishop bellowed, wrenching the beam again. Longroad grabbed Holly and her mom, dragging them away from the gap as the tunnel behind them began to collapse in earnest. The sound was deafening, tons of rock and earth cascading down, filling the passage, sealing it completely. Dust billowed through the remaining gap, choking and thick. When it cleared, the gap was gone. Filled completely with rubble. And Bishop was on the other side. No, Holly whispered. No, no, no. Longroad pulled her toward the exit, real daylight now, visible 30 feet ahead. He bought us time. We don't waste it. They burst out of the tunnel into twilight, the sun fully set now, stars beginning to emerge. They were in a red rock canyon, miles from the motel, surrounded by towering stone walls. And waiting for them, engines idling, were 50 motorcycles arranged in protective formation. A young biker, barely 20, with nervous eyes, rushed forward. The others? Trapped, Cypher said grimly. Bishop collapsed the tunnel. Saved us, but... He didn't finish. Holly stared back at the tunnel entrance, now just a dark hole in the canyon wall, sealed somewhere inside. Her grandfather's best friend. The man who'd knelt before her hours ago. Gone. Her mom was crying. The council members stood in shocked silence. Then Holly's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. A text message from an unknown number. The girl or Bishop? You have 1 hour to choose. Bring the box to the crossroads at Highway 12. Come alone. Or we bury him alive. Below it, a photo, Bishop, bloodied but alive, zip-tied and kneeling, a gun to his head. Holly looked up at Longroad, at Cypher, at the 50 bikers waiting for orders. How far is the crossroads, she asked, voice cold as desert night. Holly, no, her mom said. You can't. How far? Holly repeated. Longroad met her gaze. Saw something there that made her nod slowly. 20 minutes. But it's a trap. Holly tucked the phone away and climbed onto the back of the nearest motorcycle. Then let's make it their trap, not ours. Absolutely not, Holly's mom stepped in front of the motorcycle, arms crossed. You are 12 years old. You are not riding into a hostage situation with a metal box and a death wish. Holly met her mother's eyes. They'll kill Bishop if I don't go. They'll kill you if you do. Her mom's voice cracked. Holly, please. Let the adults handle this. Longroad moved forward, her weathered face gentle but firm. Ma'am, with respect, we're not going to the crossroads. None of us are that stupid. Holly blinked. But Bishop is trained for capture scenarios, Cypher interrupted, his prosthetic hand flexing unconsciously. First rule your grandfather taught us, never trade a hostage for the mission objective. Ever. The moment they have both you and the box, Bishop dies anyway. And so do you. The young biker who'd greeted them spoke up, voice shaking slightly. We have another play. But we need to move now. They'll have drones up soon, thermal imaging. This canyon won't hide us for long. Longroad turned to him. Ridge, where's the nearest safe house? Ridge. Holly filed the name away, studying him. He was too nervous, eyes darting too much. Something felt off. Red Echo Outpost, Ridge said quickly. 30 miles northeast. Built into the canyon walls, completely off-grid. They'd never find it. Cypher pulled out his tablet, fingers flying across the screen. No. Red Echo was compromised 6 months ago. Squatters moved in, probably reported the location. Then Copper Wells, Ridge suggested. Or the old trading post near. We use Iron Nest, Long Road cut him off, voice final. It's the only site built to your grandfather's specifications, Holly. Defensible, provisioned, and hidden. We go there, regroup, and plan a real rescue for Bishop. Ridge's jaw tightened. Iron Nest is 40 miles. That's an hour of exposure time. Then we better stop talking and start riding, Long Road snapped. She gestured, and the 50 bikers immediately began reorganizing, forming up into a tight convoy formation, checking weapons, pulling out night vision goggles. This wasn't a gang. This was a military unit. Holly's mom still blocked the motorcycle. And what happens at this Iron Nest? You plan a rescue that gets my daughter killed? We plan a rescue that works, Cypher said quietly. Bishop wouldn't want Holly surrendering. He'd want her safe. That's what we're doing, keeping her safe while we figure out how to extract him. A woman biker, older, with a scar across her cheek, brought a helmet to Holly. It's going to be a rough ride, kid. Stay close to Long Road, don't let go, and whatever you do, don't look down when we hit the canyon passes. Holly took the helmet. It was too big, but the woman adjusted the straps until it fit snugly. Mom, Holly said softly. I trust them. Grandpa trusted them for 40 years. Her mother looked at the assembled bikers, at their serious faces and ready weapons, at the way they moved with purpose and precision. Finally, she exhaled shakily. If anything happens to her. It won't, Long Road promised. You have my word. And I never break my word. They mounted up, Holly behind Long Road, her mom behind Cypher, council members distributed among the convoy. Holly clutched the metal box against her chest with one arm, the other wrapped around Long Road's waist. Ridge mounted his own bike at the rear of the formation. Holly watched him in the side mirror, saw him pull out his phone, thumb moving quickly across the screen. Texting someone. Her stomach dropped. Long Road, Holly said urgently, but the engines roared to life, drowning her voice. The convoy moved as one, 50 bikes flowing out of the canyon like a mechanical river. They rode without headlights, using night vision and ambient starlight, following terrain that seemed impossible to navigate in darkness. Holly had never been on a motorcycle before. The speed was terrifying, the lean through turns making her stomach lurch. But Long Road rode like she was part of the machine, perfectly balanced, anticipating every rock and curve. They climbed out of the canyon onto a high desert plain. The land stretched forever under a sky drowning in stars. Behind them, toward the motel, Holly could see distant lights, helicopters searching, probably. They rode for 20 minutes in formation, then Long Road's radio crackled, possible tail. Single vehicle, maintaining distance. Ridge, can you confirm? Ridge's voice came back, negative visual. Probably just paranoia. But 2 minutes later, Cypher's voice, confirmed. Black SUV, no plates, 2 miles back. They're pacing us. How did they find us? Someone asked. Holly knew. She pulled her phone from her pocket, the one that had received the text message with Bishop's photo. With shaking hands, she powered it off and threw it as hard as she could into the darkness. Holly, her mom shouted from Cypher's bike. What are you doing? They tracked my phone. Holly yelled back. From the text message. Cypher cursed. Smart kid. But if they were tracking the phone, they already know our heading. Long Road's voice turned hard. Formation scatter. We split at the next junction. Half go north, half go south. Holly's group goes east to Iron Nest. We lose them in the confusion. The convoy immediately began shifting, creating 2 distinct groups. Holly's heart pounded as she realized she'd be in the smaller group, more vulnerable, but faster. They crested a rise, and below them the desert split around a massive rock formation. The junction Long Road mentioned. On my mark, Long Road radioed. 3, 2, 1. Break. The convoy exploded into 3 directions. 25 bikes veered north, 20 south, and 5, including Holly's, shot east into a narrow canyon barely wide enough for 2 bikes abreast. Holly looked back. The SUV hesitated at the junction, then followed the northern group. They'd made it. Or so she thought. 3 miles into the narrow canyon, Ridge's voice crackled. We've got a problem. Road ahead is blocked. Rockslide, maybe? I don't remember it being here. Long Road slowed, and Holly's blood went cold. In the narrow canyon ahead, illuminated by the bike's night vision, was a massive pile of boulders completely blocking the path. But these weren't naturally fallen rocks. They were arranged. Deliberately. It's an ambush, Cypher said flatly. And then the canyon walls above them lit up with flashlight beams. At least a dozen armed figures lined the ridges on both sides, weapons pointed down. They were trapped in a kill box. A voice echoed through a megaphone from above, "Turn off your engines. Place your weapons on the ground. Send up the girl with the box. You have 30 seconds." Longroad's hand went to something on her belt, a gun, Holly realized. "Don't," Holly whispered. "They'll kill us all." "They'll kill us anyway," Longroad said grimly. But Cypher was staring at his tablet, face confused. "This doesn't make sense. These aren't the cartel's positions. The tactical signature is wrong. This is." He looked up at the figures on the ridge. "These are local law enforcement. Sheriff's department, maybe state police." Holly's mind raced. The cartel had infiltrated law enforcement, her grandfather's recording had said so. Which meant the people above them weren't there to arrest them. They were there to make them disappear. "Ridge," Longroad said slowly, turning to look at the young biker. "How did you know about this canyon route?" Ridge's face, visible in the dim light, was pale. Sweating. Your grandfather used it, I thought." "My grandfather never used predictable routes," Longroad interrupted. "He changed paths every time. But you insisted on this 1 inch." Ridge's hand moved toward his jacket. Cypher's gun was out faster. "Don't." The pieces fell into place in Holly's mind with horrible clarity. "You led them to the motel," she said quietly. "The signal from the box told the cartel I existed. But you told them exactly where I was." Ridge's face twisted, guilt and fear and something else. Desperation. "They have my sister," he choked out. "They said they'd kill her if I didn't cooperate. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The megaphone above, 20 seconds. Longroad looked at Holly, at the trapped convoy, at the armed men above. "We can fight," she said quietly. "Some of us might make it." Holly looked at the metal box in her hands. At her terrified mother. At the impossible situation. Then she looked at Ridge, really looked at him. Saw the tears on his face. The trembling hands. And made a decision her grandfather would have been proud of. "No," Holly said. "We don't fight. We negotiate." She stood up on the motorcycle, holding the box high. "I'll come up," she shouted. "But I want proof that Ridge's sister is alive. And I want safe passage for everyone else." Silence from above. "Then, you're not in a position to make demands, little girl." Holly smiled, cold and sharp, just like Bishop had. "Yes, I am. Because if you shoot me, this box opens and releases everything my grandfather collected. Every name, every bribe, every murder. It's set to upload automatically if my heart stops. Kill me, and you destroy yourselves. It was a complete bluff. But her voice never wavered. More silence. Then urgent, whispered conversations above. Finally, 5 minutes. We're verifying some things. Longroad stared at Holly. That was either brilliant or insane. Probably both, Holly admitted, heart hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Cypher was typing frantically on his tablet. I'm trying to reach the other convoy groups, get reinforcements here. But Holly wasn't listening anymore. Because in the distance, from deeper in the canyon, she heard a sound that didn't belong. The rumble of many, many more engines. And they were getting closer. The rumble grew louder, echoing off the canyon walls like approaching thunder. The armed figures on the ridges shifted nervously, their flashlight beams swinging toward the sound. What is that? One of them shouted. Cypher looked up from his tablet, eyes wide. That's impossible. The northern convoy is still 20 miles away. This is coming from ahead of us, from deeper in the canyon. The sound resolved into distinct engines, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Then, around the far bend beyond the rockslide, headlights appeared. Not the discrete lights of motorcycles, but the running lights of something bigger. Trucks. Old pickup trucks, flatbeds, even a few vintage buses, all modified with roll cages and reinforced frames. And between them, winding like a steel serpent, more motorcycles than Holly could count. They weren't Bishop's people. These riders wore different patches, a dozen different colors and symbols. Rival clubs, Holly realized. Groups that should have been enemies. The convoy stopped just beyond the rockslide. Engines idled. Then a single rider dismounted and walked to the boulder pile. She was ancient, had to be 80 years old, with white hair in 2 long braids and a face like carved leather. Her vest was covered in patches from a dozen different clubs. Grandmother Kai, Longroad whispered, voice filled with awe. I thought she was dead. The old woman climbed the rockslide with surprising agility and stood at the top, surveying the trapped group below and the armed men on the ridges. When she spoke, her voice carried like a whip crack despite her age. I am Grandmother Kai, speaker for the United Tribes. The girl you're threatening is under protection of the old code. Any who harm her will answer to 700 riders currently surrounding this canyon. And I promise you, badges won't save you from what we'll do. One of the armed men above shouted down, this is police business. You're interfering with murder, Grandmother Kai interrupted. Don't insult my intelligence. Real police don't ambush children in canyons. They don't take orders from cartels. And they definitely don't make the mistake you're about to make. A new sound filled the canyon, hundreds of kickstands deploying simultaneously. The message was clear, the 700 riders weren't leaving. The armed men conferred urgently. Then, one by one, their flashlight beams went dark. Holly heard the sound of boots scrambling up and away from the ridge. They were retreating. Clear the road, Grandmother Kai commanded, and dozens of bikers swarmed the rockslide, moving boulders with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, the path was open. Longroad rode forward slowly, Holly still clutching the box. The old woman waited at the top of the cleared slide, eyes sharp as broken glass. You have your grandfather's jaw, she said, studying Holly. And his gift for getting into trouble, she looked at the metal box. That what everyone's dying for? Yes, ma'am, Holly said quietly. Then we better get it somewhere secure before more idiots show up, she gestured to the convoy behind her. Iron Nest is compromised, Ridge over there sold that location hours ago along with half a dozen others. But I know a place even your grandfather didn't know about. Follow us. Ridge made a choking sound. I didn't. I only told them about every safe house we have, Cypher finished, checking his tablet with disgust. Text messages going back 3 days. You've been feeding them everything. My sister, Ridge started. Is probably already dead, Grandmother Kai said bluntly. That's how cartels work. They promise, you betray, then they kill the hostage anyway to tie up loose ends. I'm sorry, boy. But you should have come to us first. Ridge's face crumpled. He slid off his bike and collapsed to his knees, sobbing. Holly felt her mother's arms wrap around her from behind. She'd moved from Cypher's bike during the standoff. Are you okay? Her mom whispered. No, Holly admitted. But I don't think that matters right now. They rode for another hour, following Grandmother Kai's convoy deeper into terrain that seemed impassable, up steep inclines, through narrow passages, across dry creek beds that could have been death traps. Finally, they emerged into a hidden box canyon with sheer walls on 3 sides. Built into the rock face was a structure that looked ancient, adobe and stone, blending so perfectly with the canyon wall that Holly had to look twice to see it. Solar panels disguised as rock formations. Water collection systems hidden in natural crevices. It was a fortress that pretended to be geology. Built by my people 70 years ago, Grandmother Kai explained as they dismounted. Long before your grandfather started his network. We used it to hide from the government during the relocation years. Now we use it to hide from different monsters. Inside was surprisingly spacious, a dozen rooms carved from living rock, furnished with a mix of ancient and modern equipment. Grandmother Kai led them to what she called the war room, a circular chamber with a massive stone table in the center. Show me what's in the box, she commanded. Holly hesitated, looking at Longroad, at Cypher, at her exhausted mother. You can trust her, Longroad said softly. Grandmother Kai taught your grandfather half of what he knew. She's the reason the iron dandelion worked at all. Holly set the box on the stone table and removed the contents, the journal, the map, and finally the USB drive from the false bottom. Cypher immediately took the drive to a computer station in the corner, an old but secure machine with no internet connection. Going to take a while to decrypt if your grandfather used his usual protocols. But Holly was staring at the journal, at symbols drawn on the first page that suddenly made sense. It's not encrypted, she said slowly. It's a puzzle. Like the ones Grandpa used to give me. She opened the journal fully. Each page contained what looked like random numbers and letters, but Holly's eyes, trained by years of her grandfather's games, saw the pattern immediately. Their coordinates, she murmured, tracing the entries with her finger. But not GPS coordinates. Something else. References to constellation positions? Star charts? Grandmother Kai smiled, a rare expression that transformed her severe face. Your grandfather said you could see patterns nobody else could. Looks like he was right. Holly flipped through the pages faster now, pieces connecting in her mind. He used astronomical coordinates so they couldn't be tracked digitally. Every entry references a specific date, time, and star position that translates to an Earth location. It's brilliant, you need to know the exact date and time the entry was made to decode it. And those dates would be in the USB files, Cypher said, pulling up data on the screen. I'm in. Your grandfather's password was Dandelion717, your birthday. The screen filled with folders, hundreds of them, organized by date. Cypher opened one at random. Inside were photographs, audio recordings, scanned documents. Evidence of a payoff to a state senator. Photos of drug shipments being loaded under police protection. Recorded conversations between cartel lieutenants and law enforcement officials. This is everything, Cypher breathed. 40 years of intelligence. Names, dates, evidence that could bring down half the Southwest's power structure, Grandmother Kai finished. Which is why people want that little girl dead. She's not just carrying evidence. She's carrying an earthquake. Holly's mom pulled her daughter close. Then we destroy it. We delete everything and disappear. Take Holly somewhere safe. There is nowhere safe, Long Road said gently. The moment the cartel learned the iron dandelion was active again, Holly became a target. Destroying the evidence doesn't change that. They'll always wonder if there's another copy, another leak. They'll never stop hunting her. Holly looked at the screen, at decades of her grandfather's careful work. At proof of corruption, violence, and evil that had gone unpunished for too long. What if we don't destroy it, she said quietly. What if we use it? Everyone turned to stare at her. Use it how? Cypher asked. Holly's mind was racing, puzzle pieces clicking together. The cartel wants this evidence gone. But what they really want is to make sure it never reaches anyone who matters. So they've compromised local law enforcement, state police, probably even some federal agencies. She looked up at Grandmother Kai. But they can't have compromised everyone. There have to be some clean investigators, some honest agents. We just need to figure out who. And how do you propose we do that? Her mother asked. Holly pulled the journal closer, flipping to a specific page near the back. Because Grandpa already figured it out. Look, these entries are different. They're marked with a star symbol. I think these are his list of clean contacts. People he verified couldn't be bought. Cypher moved to look over her shoulder, matching the journal entries to the USB files. His face went pale. Holly. Most of these people are dead. Killed in the last 10 years. Your grandfather wasn't just protecting you. He was watching his entire network of honest contacts get systematically eliminated. The room fell silent. Holly felt cold despite the desert heat. How many are left? Cypher scrolled through the files. Out of 43 names. 3 are confirmed alive and still in positions of power. A federal prosecutor in Phoenix. An FBI assistant director in El Paso. And, he stopped, squinting at the screen. A U.S. Marshal who's currently investigating corruption in the very agencies the cartel has infiltrated. 3 people, Long Road said. Against an entire cartel operation. 3 people with evidence that could burn the cartel to the ground, Holly countered. We just have to get it to them without getting killed first. Grandmother Kai studied Holly with an expression that was part approval, part concern. Your grandfather spent 10 years running and hiding. You want to spend 10 minutes fighting? I want to finish what he started, Holly said firmly. And I want to save Bishop before they kill him. She turned to the computer screen, to the files that represented her grandfather's life's work. So here's what we're going to do. And for the next 3 hours, in a hidden canyon beneath a ceiling of stars, a 12-year-old girl planned a war. Holly stood at the stone table, journal open before her, surrounded by bikers who'd fought longer than she'd been alive. Her mom hovered anxiously nearby, but Holly's focus was absolute. The cartel knows too much, she said, pointing to entries in the journal. They knew about the motel. They were waiting the moment the box opened. They knew we'd run to safe houses. Ridge gave them locations, yes, but even before that, they were always one step ahead of Grandpa. Cypher frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying Ridge isn't the first spy. Holly looked up, meeting each person's eyes. Grandpa shut down the network 10 years ago because someone betrayed him. Someone high up. And I think that person is still here. The room exploded with protests. Long Road stepped forward, voice sharp. That's a serious accusation. These people have been loyal for decades. Then explain this. Holly flipped to a page dated 3 months before her grandfather's death. Grandpa wrote, "The snake is still in the garden." Thought silence would starve it, but it only went dormant. When the network wakes, it will strike, he knew. He was warning me. Grandmother Kai's eyes narrowed. How do we find this snake? Holly's fingers traced the journal entries. Grandpa left clues. Look, every major compromise in the last 10 years is marked with a small red dot. 17 incidents where the cartel knew things they shouldn't have known. She spread the map on the table. And every single one traces back to decisions made by the council. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Longroad's face went stony. You're saying one of us? I'm saying the spy is someone with access to high-level information. Someone who's been around long enough to matter. Someone Grandpa trusted. Holly's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. And I'm going to prove it. She pulled out her phone, the new one Cypher had given her, completely secure. We're going to feed false information to different people and see where it leaks. A trap within a trap. That's dangerous, her mother protested. Holly, if you're wrong. If I'm wrong, Bishop dies and the cartel keeps hunting us forever. Holly looked at her mom. But I'm not wrong. Grandpa taught me patterns. And this pattern is clear. Cypher nodded slowly. What do you need? 3 fake plans. 3 different evacuation routes out of this canyon. We tell each plan to a different group of people, then we wait and see which route the cartel shows up on. It was elegant in its simplicity. Grandmother Kai smiled grimly. Your grandfather would be proud. And furious. But mostly proud. They spent the next hour crafting 3 scenarios. Plan North claimed they'd evacuate at dawn through the northern pass to a non-existent safe house near the Nevada border. Plan South suggested a midnight run to a fictional contact in Mexico. Plan East involved a bold daytime drive straight to the FBI office in Phoenix. Holly divided the council and key riders into 3 groups, making sure each group had a mix of people. Then, carefully, she briefed each group separately, emphasizing that their plan was the real one and the others were decoys. Only Grandmother Kai, Cypher, Longroad, and her mother knew the truth. None of the plans were real. By midnight, the trap was set. Holly sat in the war room, watching radio frequencies on Cypher's equipment, waiting for the leak. Ridge sat in the corner, still devastated, under guard but not restrained. He'd stopped crying but looked hollow. I really thought I was saving her, he whispered to no one in particular. My sister. I thought. The cartel showed you a video of her begging, right? Cypher asked quietly. Recent, time-stamped, impossible to fake? Ridge nodded miserably. They're good at that. Good at finding exactly what you love and using it. Cypher's prosthetic hand flexed. That's how they got me, 5 years ago. Said they'd kill my daughter. I fed them information for 6 months before your grandfather figured it out. Holly looked up sharply. You were a spy too? Reformed spy, Cypher corrected. Your grandfather gave me a choice, help him feed false information back to the cartel, or lose everything. I chose redemption. Led the cartel on a wild goose chase that cost them millions and exposed 3 of their operations. He looked at Ridge. There's always a way back, if you're willing to fight for it. Before Ridge could respond, Cypher's equipment beeped. A radio transmission, encrypted but sloppy, emanating from somewhere within the canyon. Cypher's fingers flew across the keyboard. Someone just sent a burst transmission. Encrypted, but using an old protocol. I can crack it. Holly held her breath. Her mother gripped her shoulder. The decryption finished. Cypher's face went pale as he read the message aloud. Plan North is real. Target evacuating at dawn through Northern Pass. Intercept coordinates attached. Recommend full tactical team. Subject must not reach Nevada. Plan North, Longroad said slowly. That's the one we told to. She trailed off, looking at the council members present. Only 2 had been briefed on Plan North, an older biker named Garrett, who'd served for 30 years, and a woman named Silva, who handled communications. Both were currently in the next room, supposedly sleeping. Get them, Grandmother Kai ordered. 2 guards left and returned minutes later with both suspects, Garrett groggy and confused, Silva alert and tense. What's this about? Garrett demanded. It's past midnight. Someone transmitted our evacuation plan to the cartel 15 minutes ago, Cypher said flatly. Only you two knew the details of Plan North. Garrett's confusion looked genuine. I've been asleep for an hour. Silva was on watch. He stopped, looking at her. Silva's hand drifted toward her vest pocket. Don't, Longroad said, gun already drawn. But Silva wasn't reaching for a weapon. She pulled out a phone, different from the secure ones they'd been issued, and held it up, screen showing a video call. I'm sorry, she whispered. But you need to see this. She turned the phone around. On the screen was a young woman, maybe 19, tied to a chair in a concrete room. Bloodied but alive. Behind her stood a man in a tactical mask, holding a knife to her throat. Ridge gasped. Maria? Maria. Your sister, Silva said, voice breaking. They have her. They've had her for 2 weeks. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill her and move on to Ridge. Then to other families. They have a list, Holly. A list of every biker's loved ones. So you sold us out? Longroad's voice was ice. I was buying time. Silva shouted. Every day I delay, every false lead I feed them, is another day these people stay alive. You think I wanted to betray the network? Your grandfather was like a father to me. Holly stared at the phone, at Ridge's sister struggling against her bonds, at the knife gleaming in the masked man's hand. How many? Holly asked quietly. Silva's eyes filled with tears. How many what? How many hostages do they have? How many families are they using for leverage? Silva's shoulders slumped. At least 8 that I know of. Maybe more. They've been collecting them for months, ever since they learned the network might reactivate. It's their insurance policy. The room fell silent. Ridge was openly weeping now, staring at his sister on the screen. Holly's mind raced. This wasn't just about exposing the cartel anymore. This was a hostage crisis. Silva, Holly said slowly, the transmission you just sent, did they respond? Silva nodded. They confirmed receipt. Tactical team will be at the northern pass by dawn. Good, Holly looked at Cypher. Can we trace where that video is being recorded? If Silva keeps the call connected, maybe. But it'll take time, and they might notice. They won't notice, Holly interrupted, because Silva is going to tell them we're panicking. That we know there's a spy but we're not sure who. That we're going ahead with Plan North anyway because we're desperate. Silva blinked. You want me to keep spying? I want you to become a double agent, Holly corrected. Like Ridge is going to be. Ridge looked up, hope flickering in his devastated face. What? Holly turned to Grandmother Kai. You said you have 700 riders. How many of them have military or tactical training? Maybe 100. Why? Because we're not running anymore, Holly's voice was steel. We're going to find where they're holding the hostages. We're going to rescue them. And then we're going to make sure the cartel never threatens another family again. Her mother stepped forward. Holly, this is insane. You're talking about a military operation. I'm talking about finishing what Grandpa started. Holly met her mother's eyes. He spent 10 years protecting me. Now I'm going to protect everyone else. She turned back to Silva. Tell them we're evacuating at dawn. Tell them we're scared and making mistakes. Keep them confident. Silva's hand trembled as she brought the phone back to her ear, speaking in Spanish to whoever was on the other end. Holly couldn't understand the words, but she understood the tone: fear, submission, cooperation. Exactly what the cartel expected. When Silva ended the call, she looked at Holly with something like awe. They bought it. They're mobilizing the tactical team to the northern pass. They think they've won. Perfect, Holly said. Because while they're waiting at the northern pass, we're going to hit them somewhere they're not expecting. She turned to Cypher. That video call, did you trace it? Cypher grinned, a wolf's expression. Got a general location. Warehouse district, about 40 miles southeast. Can narrow it down with another few calls. Holly looked at the assembled bikers, at the council members, at Grandmother Kai's ancient, knowing eyes. Then let's go get our people back. And for the first time since arriving at the desert motel, Holly felt like she understood why 3,000 bikers had knelt before her. Because she wasn't just inheriting her grandfather's network. She was becoming its leader. The war room transformed into a command center. Grandmother Kai spread detailed topographic maps across the stone table while Cypher pulled up satellite imagery on 3 different screens. Holly stood at the center of it all, her grandfather's journal open to a page that suddenly made perfect sense. This entry, she said, pointing to a seemingly random string of numbers from 8 years ago. It's not about the past. It's instructions for the future. Grandpa knew someone might need to stage a rescue operation someday. Longroad leaned in, studying the code. What does it say? It's a location. Holly traced the coordinates, matching them to Cypher's map. A ghost town called Redemption, about 30 miles from where the hostages are being held. Grandpa used it as a forward operating base back in the 80s. Said it had everything needed for surveillance and tactical planning. Redemption's been abandoned for decades, Garrett said, recovered from the shock of Silva's betrayal. Nothing there but collapsed buildings and scorpions. On the surface, maybe. Holly flipped to another journal page showing hand-drawn architectural plans. But Grandpa built a bunker underneath the old church. Solar power, radio equipment, supply cache. He called it his ghost position, a place to disappear and watch the enemy. Cypher was already typing. If the equipment's still functional, we could set up surveillance on the warehouse from there. Get eyes on the hostages, count guards, plan the extraction. It's risky, Longroad said. 30 miles is close. If they have patrols. They won't be looking for ghosts, Grandmother Kai interrupted, a thin smile on her weathered face. The cartel thinks we're running north. They'll have all resources focused on that interception. A small team moving to an abandoned town? Invisible. Holly's mom grabbed her arm. You are not going to a ghost town to spy on armed cartel members. Yes, I am. Holly's voice was firm. Because I'm the only one who can decode Grandpa's security systems. He designed them specifically so only someone with his puzzle-solving gift could access them. That's me, Mom. It has to be me. The room fell silent. Her mother's face cycled through fear, anger, and finally resignation. Then I'm coming with you. No, Holly said gently. I need you here, helping coordinate with the other groups. Someone has to manage communications while we're in the field. She looked at Longroad. That's your job too. Your command center. Longroad started to protest, but Grandmother Kai raised a hand. The girl's right. She needs riders who can move fast and fight if necessary. You're too valuable to risk on reconnaissance. I'll take her, Cypher said. Plus Ridge and Silva, they need a chance to prove themselves. And 4 others, small and fast. Ridge looked up, eyes red but determined. I can fight. I know I messed up, but if you give me a chance. You'll have it, Holly said. But if you betray us again, there won't be a third chance. Understood? Ridge nodded, something hardening in his expression. Understood. They prepared quickly. Cypher selected 4 riders, all experienced, all quiet. Holly packed the journal, the map, and a laptop loaded with the decrypted files. Her mother hugged her so tightly Holly couldn't breathe, whispering, "Come back to me. Promise." "I promise," Holly whispered back, hoping it wasn't a lie. They left at 2 a.m., 7 riders on 4 bikes, running dark without headlights. The desert night was vast and cold, stars so bright they cast shadows. Cypher led, navigating by GPS and memory, avoiding roads and sticking to hard-packed trails that wouldn't leave tracks. Holly rode behind Silva, who handled the bike with precise, angry efficiency. "Thank you," Silva said over the engine noise. "For trusting me to help fix this." "Thank me when we get them out alive," Holly replied. They rode in silence after that, racing across a landscape that looked alien under starlight. Ridge kept pace beside them, his face set with determination. Whatever fear or guilt had paralyzed him before was gone now, replaced by purpose. After 90 minutes, Cypher raised a fist, the signal to stop. Ahead, silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky, were the ruins of Redemption. It looked like a movie set for the end of the world. A dozen collapsed buildings lined a single dirt street, windows empty as skull sockets, roofs caved in, walls leaning at impossible angles. At the far end stood a church, or what remained of one. The steeple had fallen, but the main structure still stood, defiant against decay. "That's it," Holly said, consulting the journal. "The entrance to the bunker is under the altar." They dismounted and approached on foot, weapons ready. The ghost town was silent except for the wind whistling through broken walls. Holly's imagination populated the empty street with ghosts, miners, families, people who'd once called this dead place home. The church door hung on one hinge, creaking as they pushed inside. Dust lay thick on everything. Pews rotted where they stood. But the altar, a simple stone block, looked oddly intact. Holly knelt beside it, running her hands along the base until she found what she was looking for, 3 small indentations, each shaped like a specific constellation. Orion. Cassiopeia. The Big Dipper. Grandpa's favorite stars, she murmured, pressing them in the order he'd always recited: Hunter, Queen, Bear. Something clicked deep in the stone. The altar shifted sideways, revealing stairs descending into darkness. Cypher turned on a flashlight. "Ladies first." Holly descended into her grandfather's hidden world. The bunker was larger than she'd expected, 3 connected rooms carved from bedrock. The first room held radio equipment, old but meticulously maintained, covered in protective tarps. The second was living quarters, cots, water storage, shelves of canned food with expiration dates from decades ago. The third room made Holly's breath catch. It was a surveillance center. One entire wall was covered in screens, all dark now, but clearly designed to display multiple feeds. Below them, a control console with buttons labeled in her grandfather's handwriting: Warehouse District, Highway 12, Border Crossroads, Cartel Compound A, Cartel Compound B. He was watching them, Cypher breathed. For years, he had eyes on their operations. Ridge moved to a filing cabinet, pulling open drawers. Inside were thousands of photographs, surveillance logs, maps marked with movement patterns. "This is incredible. With this information, we can find the hostages." Holly sat at the control console, examining the equipment. "Cypher, can you get power to these systems?" "If the solar panels are still functional, yes. Give me 10 minutes." While Cypher worked on the electrical systems, Holly explored the surveillance logs. Her grandfather's neat handwriting filled page after page: dates, times, observations, patterns of movement. He'd been watching the cartel even while pretending to be retired, gathering intelligence but never acting on it. Protecting me, Holly thought. Building a weapon he hoped I'd never need to use. Silva found a radio and powered it on, tuning to the frequency the cartel had used. Static filled the room, then voices, speaking in Spanish, discussing the northern pass, the ambush they were setting. "They're taking the bait," Silva translated. "They've moved 40 men to the northern checkpoint. The warehouse guard is reduced to a skeleton crew." "How many?" Holly asked. 8, maybe 10. "They think the warehouse is secure." Silva's smile was sharp. "They think wrong." Cypher got the power running. One by one, the screens flickered to life, surveillance cameras her grandfather had installed years ago, hidden so well the cartel had never found them. Most showed static or dead feeds, but 3 cameras were still functional. One pointed at the warehouse district. 2 showed the interior of what had to be the hostage building. Holly's heart hammered as she adjusted the focus. There, in a large room divided by chain-link fencing, she could see them. 8 people, maybe 9, tied to chairs or lying on cots. One was clearly Ridge's sister, recognizable from the video call. The others were various ages, all looking exhausted and terrified. "Maria," Ridge whispered, pressing close to the screen. "She's alive. She's really alive." 2 guards were visible inside, both armed with rifles, both looking bored. Holly switched to the exterior camera. The warehouse sat in an industrial area, surrounded by other abandoned buildings. One vehicle parked outside, a black SUV. Minimal security, just like Silva had said. "They're overconfident," one of Cypher's team members said. "They think we're running scared." "We were," Holly said quietly. "Until about 4 hours ago," she turned to the group. "Here's what we do. Silva, you radio the cartel and tell them we took the bait at the northern pass, that there's confusion and panic. Make them think they've won." Silva nodded, moving to the radio. "Ridge, you and Cypher mark every entrance and exit on this building. Find the best approach route." "Done," Cypher said, already annotating the surveillance images. Holly looked at the remaining riders. "We go in fast and quiet. Neutralize the guards, get the hostages out, and disappear before reinforcements arrive. We have maybe a 2-hour window before the northern team realizes there's no evacuation happening." "What about Bishop?" Silva asked. "The cartel said they have him too." Holly's jaw tightened. "I don't see him on these feeds." "Which means he's somewhere else, probably at their main compound." She looked at the screens showing the cartel's other monitored locations. "We save these hostages first. Then we use them to find Bishop." It was cold calculation, and Holly hated herself for it. But it was also logical. The group spent the next hour planning every detail. Approach routes. Timing. Contingencies. Holly was surprised how naturally strategy came to her, like solving a particularly dangerous puzzle. Finally, as dawn broke over the ghost town, they were ready. "One more thing," Holly said, pulling up a specific file on the laptop. "Before we go, we upload Grandpa's evidence to a secure server. If something goes wrong, if we don't make it back, the information still gets out." Cypher set up the upload. Progress bar, 1%. 5%. 15%. Holly watched the numbers climb, each percentage point another nail in the cartel's coffin. At 100%, she exhaled. "Now," she said, "let's go be heroes." The 7 of them left the church, mounting their bikes as the sun painted the desert gold. They rode toward the warehouse in perfect formation, quiet as hunting wolves. And somewhere ahead, 8 innocent people waited for a rescue they didn't know was coming. The rescue was supposed to be simple. It wasn't. They'd reached the warehouse district just as the sun crested the horizon, turning the industrial wasteland into a maze of long shadows and blinding light. Cypher had taken point, leading them through a gap in the perimeter fence, when Ridge's bike hit something in the dirt, a pressure plate, almost invisible in the dawn glare. The explosion wasn't large, but it didn't need to be. Ridge's front tire blew, sending him skidding sideways. The noise echoed through the empty district like a gunshot. "Abort!" Cypher hissed into his radio, but it was too late. Inside the warehouse, alarms started wailing. Floodlights snapped on. The two guards Holly had seen on camera burst through the front door, rifles raised, and behind them came more, not 2 guards, but 6, then 8. They knew, Silva breathed. They knew we were coming. Holly's mind raced. The cameras. Grandpa's cameras. If he'd installed them, maybe the cartel had found them. Maybe they'd been feeding false intelligence, waiting for exactly this moment. Fall back. Cypher ordered, but Holly saw the SUV roaring around the building's far side, cutting off their escape route. They were trapped. 8 armed guards ahead, 1 vehicle behind, and somewhere inside, 8 hostages who were probably about to be executed. Holly made a decision. Stop, she screamed, loud enough to cut through the engine noise and alarms. Stop. I'll trade. Cypher's head whipped around. Holly, no. I'll trade myself for the hostages. Holly shouted at the guards. That's what you want, right? Me and the information? Let them go, and I'll give you everything. The guards hesitated. One spoke rapidly into a radio. The response came quickly. Holly couldn't hear it, but she saw the guard's expression change from aggressive to cautious. Put down your weapons, the guard shouted. The girl comes forward. Everyone else stays back. Holly, don't do this, Silva pleaded. But Holly was already dismounting, the metal box clutched in her arms. Keep the laptop, she whispered to Cypher. The evidence is already uploaded. This box? She shook it. This is leverage. They think they need it, so they won't kill me immediately. Immediately is not reassuring, Cypher hissed. Holly ignored him and walked forward, hands raised, the box visible. The guards surrounded her instantly, rifles pointed at her head, patting her down for weapons. They found her phone and crushed it under a boot. The hostages, Holly said, voice steadier than she felt. Release them. That was the deal. The guard who'd done the radio call, clearly the leader, studied her. You're 12 years old. And you're pointing guns at a child. What does that say about you? His jaw tightened, but he gestured to another guard, who disappeared into the warehouse. Minutes later, the hostages emerged, 8 confused, terrified people, including Ridge's sister Maria, who could barely walk. Ridge started forward, but Cypher held him back. The hostages were herded toward Holly's group. Maria collapsed into Ridge's arms, sobbing. The others looked dazed, like they couldn't believe they were free. Now the girl comes with us, the guard leader said, grabbing Holly's arm. Now, Holly said clearly, you let my people leave with the hostages. Once they're gone, I'll go with you. If you try to shoot them, I drop this box and smash it. Whatever's inside becomes useless. Your choice. The guard's radio crackled. Another response Holly couldn't hear. His grip on her arm tightened painfully. Fine. They leave. But if we see them again, everyone dies. Tell them. Holly looked at Cypher. Get them back to Grandmother Kai. Tell her, she swallowed hard. Tell her to contact the clean federal agents. Give them the evidence. Finish this. Holly, Cypher's voice broke. Go. Holly shouted. They went. Cypher gathered the freed hostages onto the bikes, some riding double, others clinging to whoever had space. They roared away, leaving Holly alone with 8 armed guards and the growing certainty that she'd just made a terrible mistake. The guards hustled her into the warehouse, through a maze of rusted equipment and empty offices, downstairs into a basement that smelled like mold and fear. They threw her into a small room and locked the door. Holly sat in the darkness, the metal box beside her, and tried not to panic. She'd bought time. Saved 8 people. That was something. But she was 12 years old, alone, and kidnapped by a drug cartel. Not her best day. 3 hours later, the door opened. Holly expected guards, guns, threats. Instead, she got Long Road. The older woman stepped into the room, closed the door behind her, and sat against the wall. Her face was furious. "What the hell were you thinking?" Long Road demanded. Holly blinked. "How did you? How are you here?" "Because Cypher called me the moment you surrendered. Because Grandmother Kai mobilized 200 riders. Because we just liberated this entire warehouse in about 6 minutes." Longroad's voice was tight with controlled anger. "The guards are zip-tied outside. The hostages are safe. And you, Holly Brennan, just made the most reckless, idiotic, grandstanding decision I've ever witnessed." Relief flooded through Holly so intensely she started shaking. "I saved them," she whispered. "By offering yourself as sacrifice." Long Road exploded. "Do you have any idea what could have happened? What these people do to their prisoners?" "I knew you'd come," Holly said quietly. Long Road stopped. "What?" "I knew you'd come. You, Cypher, Grandmother Kai, you wouldn't leave me. So I just had to buy time until you arrived." Holly met Longroad's eyes. It wasn't reckless. It was calculated. Longroad stared at her, then laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Your grandfather would have done the exact same thing. And I would have yelled at him too." She stood, offering Holly a hand. "Come on. The council wants to talk to you." They emerged from the warehouse into chaos. Bikers everywhere, securing the perimeter, tending to freed hostages, guarding captured cartel members. Maria was being treated by someone with medical training, Ridge hovering anxiously nearby. Silva was on a radio, coordinating with other teams. And in the center of it all, Grandmother Kai stood with the council members, Long Road, Cypher, Garrett, and 3 others Holly didn't recognize. They looked grim. "Holly," Grandmother Kai said formally. "We need to discuss your leadership." Holly's stomach dropped. "My. What?" "Your decision to trade yourself endangered the entire operation," Garrett said, not unkindly. "You're brave, we'll grant you that. But bravery without wisdom gets people killed." "The hostages are safe," Holly protested. "We got the evidence out. The mission succeeded." "By luck," another council member said. "What if we hadn't arrived in time? What if the guards had simply executed you and kept the hostages anyway? Then I'd be dead, but the evidence would still be uploaded, the cartel would still fall, and you'd still have fought to save them." Holly's voice was steady. "Sometimes the leader has to be willing to sacrifice. The leader sacrifices others when necessary," Grandmother Kai said quietly. "Not themselves. A dead leader is useless." Holly felt tears burning her eyes but refused to let them fall. "So what are you saying? I'm not fit to lead?" The council exchanged glances. Long Road spoke, "We're saying you're 12. We're saying this is too much responsibility for anyone, let alone a child. We're saying maybe we were wrong to put this burden on you." "You didn't put anything on me," Holly said, voice rising. "Grandpa did. The cartel did. They made me a target the moment I opened that box. You think stepping down as leader makes me safer? They'll hunt me either way. At least this way, I can fight back." "With what?" Garrett asked. "You solved some puzzles, cracked some codes. That's not the same as leading a war." Holly wanted to scream, to throw something, to rage against the unfairness. Instead, she took a breath and reached for the metal box, which Cypher had retrieved from the cell. "Then let me prove it," she said quietly. She sat on the warehouse steps and opened the box, pulling out the map. She'd been studying it in the darkness of her cell, and something had finally clicked. "Everyone's been looking at this as a map of cartel locations," Holly said, spreading it on the ground. But it's more than that. Look at the symbols. Grandpa wasn't just marking where they operate. He was marking how they connect. She traced lines between locations. This isn't just a network. It's a supply chain. Drugs come in here, money goes out there, weapons move along this route. And everything, she pointed to a location in the center, marked with a red X, flows through here. Cypher leaned closer. What is that location? Holly checked the coordinates against the journal. An old copper mine in the mountains. Abandoned in the 90s. Grandpa marked it with the note, the heart of the beast. Their headquarters, Long Road breathed. More than that, Holly said. It's where they keep their records, their cash, their leverage. It's where, she looked up, I think they're keeping Bishop. The council fell silent. You can't know that, Garrett said finally. No, Holly admitted. But it makes sense. Bishop's valuable, a captured council member, potential intelligence source. They wouldn't keep him at some random warehouse. They'd keep him at their most secure location. Grandmother Kai studied the map. That mine is a fortress. 50 men, maybe more. Defensible position. Even with all our riders, a direct assault would be suicide. Then we don't assault it directly, Holly said. She pulled out the journal, flipping to a page covered in her grandfather's calculations. We do what Grandpa did best. We gather intelligence, we find weaknesses, and we exploit them. She looked up at the council. But I can't do that if you don't trust me to lead. The silence stretched. Holly's heart pounded. Everything hinged on this moment. Finally, Grandmother Kai spoke, you saved 8 hostages today. You uploaded evidence that will bring down corrupt officials across 3 states. You kept your head when experienced riders panicked, she paused. But you also took unnecessary risks. Scared your mother half to death. And made decisions that could have gotten you killed. So? Holly whispered. The old woman smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her severe face. So you're exactly like your grandfather. Brilliant, reckless, and absolutely unwilling to quit, she looked at the council. All in favor of continuing to follow the heir of the Iron Dandelion? One by one, hands raised. Even Garrett's, though he shook his head ruefully. Unanimous, Grandmother Kai declared. But Holly? Next time you plan to trade yourself as bait, at least tell us first so we can plan the rescue properly. Holly felt tears finally escape, running down her dusty cheeks. Deal. Ridge approached, Maria leaning on him heavily. Thank you, he said simply. For my sister. For giving me a chance to fix what I broke. Thank you for not giving up, Holly replied. Cypher handed her a secure phone. Your mother's been calling every 5 minutes. Probably should tell her you're alive before she steals a motorcycle and comes looking for you. Holly took the phone, but before she could dial, Silva ran up, her own phone pressed to her ear, face pale. We have a problem, Silva said. The cartel just issued a statement. They're going public. Claiming we're a domestic terrorist organization that attacked law enforcement. They've got news crews, federal attention, everything. Let them, Holly said, surprising herself with her confidence. Because in about 2 hours, every major news outlet is going to receive copies of Grandpa's evidence files. Let's see them claim we're terrorists when the world sees proof of their corruption. Grandmother Kai laughed, a deep, genuine sound. Now you're thinking like a leader. Holly looked at the mine's location on the map. Then let's finish this, she said. Let's go get Bishop. And let's make sure my grandfather's 40 years of work finally means something. The council nodded. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, Holly believed they could actually win it. The plan was insane. Holly knew it, the council knew it, and judging by her mother's expression on the video call, everyone back at the canyon hideout knew it too. "You want to do what?" her mom's voice crackled through the secure phone. "Ride into the mountains with 300 bikers and break into a fortified mine," Holly repeated patiently. "Mom, it's the only way to get Bishop back and shut down their operation permanently." "Holly, you're 12. I know how old I am." Holly's frustration boiled over. "I also know that Bishop saved my life, that Grandpa trusted these people, and that if we don't end this now, we'll be running forever. Is that what you want?" Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "I want you safe." "Safe doesn't exist anymore," Holly said, softer now. "Not until the cartel is finished. Grandpa knew that. That's why he built all of this, not to hide, but to fight when the time came." Her mother's sigh was heavy. "You sound just like him. It's terrifying." "I'll be careful. I promise." "You promised that before you got kidnapped." Holly winced. "Fair point. But this time I'll have 300 armed bikers with me. That's got to count for something." After Holly ended the call, Grandmother Kai gathered the assembled riders in the warehouse parking lot. 300 motorcycles stood in formation, far fewer than the original 3,000, but these were the fighters, the ones with tactical training or military backgrounds. The rest were evacuating hostages, securing evidence, and preparing for what came next. "The mine is 40 miles northeast," Grandmother Kai announced, her voice carrying across the lot. "Mountain terrain, single-access road, probably booby-trapped. They have high ground, superior defensive position, and they know we're coming." A murmur ran through the crowd. Someone called out, "Then why are we going?" "Because they have Bishop," Long Road answered, stepping forward. "Because they have records that could expose everyone in this network. And because if we don't end this now, they'll hunt us down one by one until we're all dead or scattered." Holly climbed onto a shipping crate so everyone could see her. Her legs shook, but she forced her voice steady. "My grandfather spent 40 years fighting these people," she said. "He documented their crimes, protected their victims, and built a network of people who cared about justice. Then he gave it all up to protect me, one 12-year-old girl he barely knew." She looked across the sea of leather and chrome. "I can't change what happened. But I can make sure his sacrifice meant something. I can finish what he started. And I can't do it alone." Ridge stood from where he'd been tending to Maria. "I'm in. I owe these bastards for what they did to my sister." Silva raised her hand. "They made me betray people I loved. I'm in." One by one, riders declared their commitment. Cypher. Garrett. The scarred woman who'd given Holly her first helmet. Young riders barely older than Holly herself. Veterans with gray beards and old wounds. Grandmother Kai watched it all with an unreadable expression. Finally, she nodded. "Then we ride. But we do this smart. Cypher, you're on reconnaissance. Silva, you and Ridge handle communications, keep feeding false intel to their network, make them think we're still scattered. Long Road, you coordinate approach vectors." She turned to Holly. "And you stay in the mobile command center. You're strategic command, not assault team." Holly started to protest, but Long Road cut her off. "Non-negotiable. You proved you can lead. Now prove you can trust your people to execute." It stung, but Holly nodded. Leadership meant knowing when to step back. They departed at noon, the sun beating down mercilessly. The convoy split into 3 groups, approaching the mine from different angles to avoid detection. Holly rode in a modified RV that served as mobile headquarters, screens showing GPS positions, radio equipment, and Cypher's drone feeds. The mountain terrain was brutal. The access road, barely more than a dirt track, wound through steep canyons and across ridges that dropped away into nothing. Several times, Holly watched through the drone feed as riders dismounted to scout ahead, checking for traps. They found 3 pressure plate explosives buried in the road, each one carefully disarmed by Cypher's team. "They're getting nervous," Silva reported, listening to cartel radio chatter. "They know something's coming but not from where. Ridge's false intel about us scattering is working. They've split their forces, sent teams to intercept groups that don't exist." "How many at the mine?" Longroad asked. Silva's face fell. "Still at least 30. Heavily armed. And they've just moved Bishop to a visible location, probably to use him as a shield." The drone feed switched to thermal imaging of the mine entrance. Holly could see heat signatures clustered around the main building, an old administrative structure built into the mountain itself. One signature, separate from the others, sat in what looked like a cage outside the entrance. "Bishop. They're baiting us," Garrett said grimly. "They know we won't attack with him exposed." Holly stared at the screen, mind racing through possibilities. Every direct approach ended in bloodshed, either Bishop's or their own people's. They needed an advantage, something unexpected. She pulled out the journal, flipping through pages frantically. Grandpa had marked this mine. He'd studied it. There had to be something. There. A notation from 1988, secondary ventilation shaft, north face. Condemned but structurally sound. Possible entry point. "Cypher," Holly called. "Can your drone check the north face of the mountain?" Looking for a ventilation shaft, probably covered or disguised. The drone's camera panned across rocky terrain. At first, nothing. Then, a slight depression in the stone, covered with old boards and desert brush. "Found it," Cypher confirmed. "Narrow, maybe 3 feet wide. No idea how deep or if it's even passable." "It's our way in," Holly said with certainty. Small team enters through the shaft, causes chaos from inside. While they're distracted, the main force hits the front entrance and extracts Bishop. Longroad studied the plan. "It's risky. If the shaft is blocked or collapses." "It won't," Holly interrupted. "Grandpa wouldn't have marked it if it wasn't viable. He was preparing for this exact scenario." Grandmother Kai's weathered face creased in thought. "Who goes in the shaft?" "I do," Ridge said immediately. "I'm small enough, and I owe Bishop for." "You're staying on comms," Longroad interrupted. "Your sister just got free. You're not dying in a mine shaft." "I'll go," Cypher said. "With 3 others. We plant charges on their fuel supplies, their generator. Create enough confusion that they can't coordinate a defense." The plan crystallized quickly. Cypher would lead the infiltration team through the shaft. They'd plant explosives, sabotage the mine's infrastructure, and signal when ready. Then Longroad would lead the frontal assault, loud, aggressive, drawing all attention while Grandmother Kai's group circled around to extract Bishop. Holly would coordinate everything from the mobile command center, watching through drone feeds and radio chatter. They moved into position as the sun began its descent. The mine sat in a natural bowl, surrounded by rocky peaks painted orange and red by the fading light. Through the drone camera, Holly watched Cypher's team rappel down to the ventilation shaft. "Entrance is clear," Cypher reported. "Going in." One by one, the 4-person team disappeared into the mountain. Holly watched their heat signatures on thermal imaging as they descended into darkness. Minutes passed like hours. Holly's hands gripped the edge of the console, knuckles white. "We're in," Cypher's voice finally crackled. "Inside the mine proper. Old tunnels, but stable. Moving toward the main chamber." On the drone feed, Holly could see the cartel guards growing restless. They knew something was wrong, years of criminal paranoia making them check weapons, pace nervously. Bishop sat motionless in his cage, face bruised but alert. "Ridge, send a message to the cartel," Holly ordered. Tell them we're willing to negotiate. Buy us 10 more minutes. Ridge transmitted the false surrender, his voice convincingly defeated. The cartel guards relaxed slightly, laughing among themselves. Cypher's team reached the generator room. Placing charges now. 4 minutes to detonation. All units, prepare for assault, Long Road commanded. On Holly's signal. Holly watched the countdown. 3 minutes. 2. Then everything went wrong. A heat signature inside the mine, one they hadn't accounted for, moved directly toward Cypher's team. A guard on patrol, or maybe security they'd missed. Contact. Cypher hissed. We're blown. Gunfire erupted inside the mountain, muffled but unmistakable. The cartel guards outside immediately went on high alert, weapons raised, scanning for threats. Cypher, status. Holly shouted. Pinned down. Guard triggered alarm. They know we're here. The mine's exterior lights blazed to life. Guards poured out of the main building, at least 20 of them, taking defensive positions. And Bishop's cage was being wheeled inside, they were moving him to a secure location. We're losing him. Long Road shouted. Holly had seconds to decide. Wait for Cypher's charges to blow and risk Bishop being moved deeper into the mine? Or attack now while he was still visible but with no diversion? She looked at the screens, at the impossible odds, at 300 bikers waiting for her command. Then she saw it, on the drone feed, a fuel truck parked near the mine entrance. 50 gallons at least, close enough to the guards that an explosion would scatter them. Cypher, forget the generator, Holly said, voice ice cold. Can you hit the fuel truck from your position? A pause. Then, maybe. It's a hell of a shot, and I've only got one charge left. Take it. On my mark. Holly switched frequencies. All units, the moment that truck explodes, you hit them with everything. Understood? Affirmatives crackled back. Holly counted down. 3. 2. 1. Mark. The explosion was massive. The fuel truck became a fireball that lit up the entire mountainside, sending guards flying, igniting smaller fires across the compound. And 300 motorcycles roared to life as one, charging toward the mine like an iron cavalry. The battle for the mountain had begun. The fireball turned night into day. Holly watched through the drone feed as chaos consumed the mine compound, guards scattered by the blast, flames spreading to storage buildings, the defensive line completely shattered. Go go go. Longroad's voice roared over the radio. The first wave of bikes hit the compound perimeter at full speed. The gates, hastily closed after the explosion, lasted approximately 3 seconds before a modified truck with a reinforced bumper smashed through them like tissue paper. Cartel guards fired wildly, but they were disorganized, blinded by smoke and flames. The bikers moved with practiced precision, not random gang members, but a coordinated tactical unit executing a plan. Bishop's cage. Holly shouted into the radio. North side of the main building, 20 yards from the entrance. Grandmother Kai's team peeled off from the main assault, racing toward where Bishop was being hurriedly wheeled back inside. 3 guards tried to block them. It didn't go well for the guards. Inside the mine, Cypher's voice crackled, we're moving to the archive room. Encryption confirms this is where they keep their records, the real ones, not the decoys. Copy that, Holly said, watching multiple feeds simultaneously. Be advised, you've got hostiles moving toward your position from the east tunnel. Already on it, Cypher replied. Gunfire echoed through the radio. On the main screen, Holly watched Grandmother Kai reach Bishop's cage. The old woman moved with surprising speed, pulling bolt cutters from her vest. The cage door fell open, and Bishop, bloodied, bruised, but alive, stumbled out. Bishop's secure. Grandmother Kai reported. Extracting now. Relief flooded through Holly, but there was no time to celebrate. The cartel guards were regrouping, taking positions in the main building. They had the high ground and reinforced positions. They're going to make a stand in the headquarters, Longroad said grimly. We could lose people trying to dig them out. Holly's mind raced. The building was stone and steel, designed to withstand attacks. A frontal assault would be costly. Unless. Cypher, what's the structural integrity of those old mine tunnels? Holly asked. A pause. Questionable in places. Why? Because the headquarters building is built directly over the main shaft, Holly said, pulling up her grandfather's architectural notes. He documented it. They built on top of the old excavation site. If the tunnels underneath collapse, the whole building comes down, Cypher finished. Holly, that's insane. We're inside those tunnels. How long to plant charges on the support pillars and get out? Another pause. 5 minutes, maybe. But Holly, we'd need to evacuate everyone above ground first. If the timing's off. Then we make sure the timing's perfect. Holly switched frequencies. All units, fall back 200 yards from the main building. Repeat, fall back now. What? Longroad's voice was sharp. We've got them pinned. Trust me. Holly shouted. The bikers pulled back, confusion evident in their movements. The cartel guards, thinking they'd won, cheered and fired victoriously into the air. Cypher, you have 5 minutes, Holly said. Make them count. The next 4 minutes and 30 seconds were the longest of Holly's life. She watched thermal imaging as Cypher's team raced through the tunnels, placing charges on critical support structures. Above ground, the cartel was reorganizing, some guards emerging from the building thinking the bikers had retreated. Charges set, Cypher reported, breathing hard. 30-second fuse. We're moving to the exit shaft. Holly watched their heat signatures racing through the maze of tunnels. 20 seconds. 15. They're not going to make it, Silva whispered beside her. Yes they will, Holly said, though her heart hammered. 10 seconds. Cypher's team reached the ventilation shaft. 5 seconds. They started climbing. 0. The explosion wasn't loud, it was deep, a rumble that Holly felt in her bones even from half a mile away. On the drone feed, she watched the main building shudder. Then, as if in slow motion, it began to sink. The ground beneath the headquarters simply gave way as the mine tunnels collapsed. The entire structure, 3 stories of reinforced stone, dropped 15 feet and tilted at a sharp angle. Windows shattered. Part of the roof caved in. The cartel guards inside screamed. Cypher, status. Holly shouted. Static. Then, blessed static followed by coughing, we're out. That was way too close. The cartel's defensive position had become a trap. Guards who'd been inside were now trapped in a partially collapsed building. Those outside threw down their weapons, hands raised in surrender. Secure the prisoners, Longroad ordered. Medical teams, check for injured, theirs and ours. Holly slumped back in her chair, adrenaline draining away. They'd done it. The mine was taken, the cartel's fortress was rubble, and Bishop was safe. But they weren't finished yet. Silva, Holly said quietly. Is the archive room still accessible? Silva checked with Cypher. Barely. Entrance is blocked, but there's a secondary access through the collapsed section. Cypher says he can reach it. Tell him to grab everything. Hard drives, paper files, everything. 20 minutes later, Cypher emerged from the ruined building carrying 2 metal cases. His face was grim. You were right, he said, setting the cases on a table in the mobile command center. This is everything. Financial records, payoff ledgers, shipping manifests, blackmail materials. Names, Holly. So many names. He opened one case. Inside were dozens of external hard drives and file folders stuffed with documents. Holly pulled out a random folder and opened it. State senators. Federal judges. Police chiefs. Border Patrol agents. Each name accompanied by bank records showing payments, photographs showing meetings, recorded conversations discussing criminal coordination. This is enough to bring down half the Southwest's political structure, Garrett breathed, looking over her shoulder. Not half, Holly corrected, pulling up a spreadsheet on one of the hard drives. Look at this. The cartel wasn't just operating in the Southwest. They had contacts in Washington, in state capitals across the country, in foreign governments. She scrolled through the files, her stomach churning. Grandpa only scratched the surface. This operation is enormous. Grandmother Kai studied the files. Then we need to be careful about who we trust this information to. One wrong person, and it disappears forever. Holly nodded, remembering the list from her grandfather's video. He identified 3 people he trusted completely. A federal prosecutor in Phoenix. An FBI assistant director in El Paso. And a U.S. Marshal investigating corruption. Those 3 get the evidence, Long Road agreed. Simultaneously, so no single person can suppress it. And we leak it to journalists too, Silva added. Multiple outlets, international if possible. Make it too big to bury. They worked through the night, copying files, preparing evidence packets, coordinating with contacts. Bishop, despite his injuries, insisted on helping, his 23 years of experience invaluable in organizing the information. By dawn, they were ready. Holly stood in the mobile command center, surrounded by people who'd become family over the past 6 days. 6 days. It felt like a lifetime. 3 USB drives, Cypher said, holding them up. Complete copies of everything. Encrypted with different keys for each recipient. Journalists are standing by, Silva added. The moment the federal agents receive their copies, we release everything publicly. Ridge had worked with his sister Maria to verify the identity of every person in the cartel's blackmail files. 48 individuals confirmed, including 12 currently serving in law enforcement. It's going to be chaos when this breaks. Holly took a deep breath. Then let's start the chaos. At exactly 6 a.m., 3 couriers departed on fast bikes. One headed to Phoenix, one to El Paso, one to Albuquerque where the U.S. Marshal was currently stationed. Each carried identical evidence packets. At 6:15 a.m., Holly pressed send on an email to 17 journalists across the United States and Mexico. The subject line read, Iron Dandelion Files, 40 Years of Cartel Government Corruption Exposed. The attached files began downloading simultaneously to newsrooms across 2 countries. Holly watched the confirmation messages roll in. Sent. Received. Downloading. Opened. It's done, she whispered. Grandmother Kai placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. No. Now it begins. The investigation, the trials, the fallout. This fight isn't over, Holly. It's just changing battlefields. Through the command center windows, Holly watched the sun rise over the mountains, painting the desert in shades of gold and red. Somewhere out there, in offices and newsrooms, in federal buildings and police stations, people were waking up to a world that was about to change. Bishop limped over, one arm in a makeshift sling. Your grandfather would be proud. Hell, I'm proud. You did in 6 days what we couldn't do in 40 years. I just finished what he started, Holly said. No, Bishop corrected gently. You made it your own. That's better. Holly's secure phone buzzed. A text from her mother, news is reporting major corruption scandal breaking. Please tell me that's you and you're safe. Holly smiled and texted back, that's us. Coming home soon. Love you. She looked at the assembled council, at the bikers who'd fought beside her, at the evidence that would reshape the Southwest's power structure. What happens now? She asked. Longroad smiled. Now we rebuild. Clean house. Make sure the network your grandfather created actually protects people instead of just watching them suffer. The iron dandelion rises again, Cypher added. But this time, we do it right. Holly looked at the metal box sitting on the table, the box that had started everything. Inside it was her grandfather's journal, his map, his life's work. She closed the lid gently. Then let's get started. Outside, 300 bikers prepared to ride home, their mission accomplished. And somewhere in the desert, in motel rooms and canyon hideouts, in diners and gas stations, word was already spreading. The iron dandelion had returned. And this time, it had thorns. 2 weeks later, Holly stood in the lobby of the Desert Rose Motel, watching construction crews repair bullet holes and broken windows. The place smelled like fresh paint and sawdust instead of dust and decay. It almost looked welcoming. Structural engineer says the building's solid, her mom said, reviewing a clipboard. Once we finish repairs, we can actually open for business. Legitimate business. Holly smiled. Her mother had been reluctant at first, but somewhere between the rescue operations and the media firestorm that followed, she'd made peace with their new reality. They weren't going back to Oregon. This was home now. Mom, we're never going to be just a motel. I know, her mother sighed. But we can at least pretend to be one on the surface. Through the lobby window, Holly watched Cypher installing new security equipment, cameras, reinforced doors, a state-of-the-art communication system hidden behind vintage decor. The motel would look abandoned and unremarkable from the outside, but underneath, it would be the most secure facility in the Southwest. Just like her grandfather had planned. The media coverage had been explosive. Headlines screamed about the Iron Dandelion Files, the largest corruption scandal in decades. 17 arrests in the first week alone, including 2 state senators, 5 police chiefs, and a federal judge. The cartel's leadership had fractured, members turning on each other as evidence mounted. But Holly's favorite headline came from a small independent newspaper: 12-year-old girl dismantles drug cartel with dead grandfather's help. It wasn't entirely accurate, but it captured the spirit. A familiar rumble echoed across the desert. Holly stepped outside as Bishop rode up on a newly repaired motorcycle, Longroad beside him. Both looked exhausted but satisfied. Phoenix office is secure, Bishop reported, dismounting with only a slight wince. His injuries were healing. The federal prosecutor has assigned a full team to process the evidence. They're estimating 2 years of trials. El Paso is the same, Longroad added. And the U.S. Marshal? She's already indicted 12 corrupt agents. Called it the most comprehensive intelligence package she'd ever received. Holly felt a weight lift slightly from her shoulders. So it's really happening. They're actually prosecuting. Oh, it's happening, Bishop grinned. Your grandfather's 40 years of work is finally paying off. And the best part? The clean agents are using our network to coordinate. They're asking for our help identifying witnesses, securing evidence, protecting informants. We've gone legitimate, Longroad said with amusement. Sort of. Grandmother Kai arrived next, her convoy of mixed club members pulling up in a cloud of dust. The old woman dismounted with the same surprising agility Holly had come to expect. The councils have voted, she announced without preamble. 7 major clubs, 43 independent groups. All agree, the Iron Dandelion Network is reborn, with Holly Brennan as its keeper. Holly's throat tightened. I'm 12. You're the person who finished what your grandfather started, Grandmother Kai corrected. Age is just a number. Leadership is earned. You've earned it. Ridge and Silva approached, both looking healthier than they had in weeks. Maria walked beside them, still recovering but smiling. They'd become unlikely friends, bonded by trauma and redemption. We've got the new communication protocol set up, Ridge said. Encrypted, decentralized, impossible to trace. Even if they compromise one person, the network stays secure. And I've established contact with 17 journalists, Silva added. They're treating us as a protected source. Anything we feed them goes straight to publication, no questions asked. Holly walked to where the hidden basement entrance had been, now reinforced and concealed behind a false wall in the supply closet. Has Cypher finished the war room? See for yourself, Longroad said. They descended into her grandfather's sanctuary, now transformed. The old equipment had been replaced with modern technology, multiple computer stations, wall-mounted screens showing news feeds and surveillance data, secure communication equipment. But grandfather's map still hung on the walls, his journal sat in a protective case, and his chair remained at the head of the conference table. A memorial, and a foundation to build on. It's perfect, Holly whispered. Cypher emerged from a back room, tablet in hand. We're getting requests already. 3 towns asking for help tracking cartel activity. 2 families needing protection from retaliation. 1 journalist investigating money laundering who needs security. Can we handle it? Holly asked. With 3,000 bikers across the Southwest? Bishop laughed. We can handle anything. Holly sat in her grandfather's chair. It was too big for her, but she'd grow into it. The council gathered around the table, Bishop, Longroad, Cypher, Grandmother Kai, Garrett, and now Ridge and Silva, promoted for their roles in the mine operation. Okay, Holly said, feeling the weight of leadership settle on her shoulders. First order of business, we're not just an intelligence network anymore. We're protectors. Anyone who comes to us for help, we help them. No politics, no agendas, just protection. Nods around the table. Second, we operate in the light now, as much as possible. We work with law enforcement, with journalists, with anyone fighting corruption. We're not vigilantes. We're information gatherers and force multipliers for the good guys. Agreed, Grandmother Kai said. Third, Holly looked at each face, we remember why Grandpa built this. Not for power, not for revenge. To protect people who can't protect themselves. That's our mission. That's what the Iron Dandelion means. Bishop raised his hand in a formal salute. One by one, the others followed. To the Iron Dandelion, he said solemnly. To the Iron Dandelion, they echoed. The meeting continued for another hour, dividing responsibilities, establishing protocols, planning for the future. When it finally ended, Holly climbed back to the lobby to find her mother talking with a reporter, carefully, revealing nothing sensitive but confirming they were reopening the motel. Holly stepped outside into the desert evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky in impossible colors. She walked to where her grandfather's old sign lay propped against the building, Desert Rose Motel, in faded letters. Beside it sat a new sign, waiting to be mounted, the Iron Dandelion Sanctuary. Simple. Direct. Honest. Footsteps behind her. Her mother wrapped an arm around Holly's shoulders. You know, her mom said quietly, when we drove out here 2 weeks ago, I thought we'd spend a weekend cleaning, then never come back. I thought this place was just a burden your grandfather left behind. And now? Now I think it's the most important place in the world. And I think my daughter is the bravest, smartest, most terrifying person I've ever met. Holly leaned into her mother's embrace. I'm scared, Mom. What if I mess up? What if people get hurt because I made the wrong call? Then you'll learn, and you'll do better next time. That's all any leader can do, her mom kissed the top of her head. Besides, you've got an entire network watching your back. You're not alone in this. A message pinged on Holly's phone. From an unknown number, "Thank you for saving my father. He was one of the hostages you freed. If you ever need anything at all, you call me. Detective Sarah Chen, Phoenix PD." It was the first of many such messages Holly would receive over the coming months. Grateful families, honest cops, saved victims, all offering help, support, connection. The network wasn't just bikers anymore. It was becoming something larger. Something her grandfather had dreamed of but never quite achieved. A true community of protectors. Bishop emerged from the motel, carrying 2 bottles of root beer. He handed one to Holly. "Thought you might want to toast the new beginning." Holly accepted it with a smile. "Is this some kind of biker tradition?" "Nah. But you're 12. Figured whiskey was inappropriate." He raised his bottle. "To your grandfather. The smartest, stubbornest, most impossible man I ever knew. And to you, for finishing what he started." They clinked bottles and drank as the sun completed its descent. Across the desert, engines rumbled, riders leaving for their homes, their jobs, their normal lives. But they'd return when needed. They always would. That was the promise of the iron dandelion. Seeds scattered on the wind, taking root wherever they landed, impossible to kill, always coming back. Holly looked at the motel, her motel now. At the desert stretching to the horizon. At the darkening sky filling with stars. Her grandfather had given her more than a building or a network. He'd given her purpose. Legacy. Family. And somewhere, she liked to think he was watching, proud of the girl who'd solved his final puzzle and turned it into something even better than he'd imagined. "Ready to go inside?" her mom asked. "Dinner's getting cold." Holly took one last look at the desert, at the place where her new life had begun. "Yeah," she said softly. "I'm ready." She walked back into the iron dandelion sanctuary, keeper of her grandfather's legacy and architect of its future. The dandelion had put down roots. And nothing would ever uproot it again.